Stop imagining medieval homes as filthy, stinking disasters. The truth? Most medieval houses were surprisingly fresh, and the secret starts with the very walls, floors, and structure you walked on. Every nail, timber, and stone was part of a system designed to keep life livable and odour under control. Stone, timber, and wattle and daub weren't just cheap building materials, they were smart choices. Timber walls and beams absorbed and released moisture naturally, preventing damp that could lead to mould. Stone floors kept the foundation cool and dry, and clay or lime plaster on walls helped neutralise odours before they could spread. Even tiny architectural details mattered. Lofts trapped stale air away from living spaces. Wall gaps allowed slight airflow without letting in wind or pests, and shutters helped regulate dampness inside the home. The floors tell another story. Dirt floors weren't simply bare soil, they were layered with sand, clay, and rushes, a primitive but effective system to absorb moisture, trap odours, and provide a firm, dry surface. Rushes and straw weren't just decoration, they were swapped, beaten, and replaced regularly, a task that often involved an entire household. Children could be seen sweeping the floor or helping shake rushes into bundles, while adults replaced damp layers or added fresh straw to maintain a firm, dry surface. The hearth sat at the centre of the home, blazing continuously. Its purpose went beyond heat. Warmth dried floors, walls, and rushes, making moisture, a breeding ground for odour, practically impossible to settle. Smoke drifted naturally through gaps in the roof and walls, carrying away minor smells while also keeping insects away. Families often gathered near the hearth not just for warmth, but to complete daily tasks, mending clothes, weaving baskets, preparing meals, or teaching children household chores. It was a passive but effective deodorizer, woven into the very design of the house. Storage spaces were just as strategic. Grain, tools, and daily essentials weren't scattered. They were stored in raised cupboards or lofts, keeping them dry and free from rot. Bedding and personal items had designated areas, separate from livestock or high-traffic zones. Even chores were layered into this system. Children swept, adults replaced straw, and everyone participated in moving bedding or airing textiles. These daily routines weren't optional, they were essential to comfort. One could imagine a child hopping onto a small stool to place a bundle of herbs into the loft, while the mother shook a rug over the smoke-filled air to freshen it. Small, habitual actions that cumulatively maintained livability. Natural materials did double duty. Ash from the hearth scrubbed surfaces, absorbed moisture, and neutralized smells. Clay or lime plastering trapped dampness and reduced the chances of mustiness. Herbs tucked into rushes or walls added subtle fragrance while also reducing insects. The system was dynamic. People swept, shook rushes, replaced straw, aired bedding, and even beat clothing to keep dirt at bay. Each action, no matter how mundane, contributed to a layered, functional hygiene system that kept homes fresh despite the presence of animals, mud, and daily life. The result? Homes that were surprisingly livable and fresh for their time. Small design choices reinforced hygiene. Lofts allowed damp air to rise, small gaps in walls promoted circulation, and slightly raised floors kept bedding off cold surfaces. Dirt wasn't a failure, it was part of the strategy. Floors, rushes, ash, straw, and timber worked together to minimize odor, absorb moisture, and maintain comfort. Homes weren't sterile, but they were functional, intelligent, and designed for livability. Stop picturing medieval villages as chaotic, smelly nightmares where animals roamed freely through every home. Freshness extended beyond individual houses to animals, waste management, and community coordination. Chickens, pigs, goats, and even occasional cows had designated pens or lean-tos, often attached but separated from the main house. Bedding in these areas wasn't left to rot. Straw, sand, and dry materials absorbed moisture, contained odours, and created a layer of protection. In winter, when animals were brought indoors temporarily, daily cleaning and layering ensured they didn't overwhelm the home with smell. Villagers might sweep the animal pens while smoke from the hearth drifted into the room, creating a rhythm of life where humans and animals coexisted without one overpowering the other. Manure wasn't discarded carelessly. It was collected daily, used as fertilizer, composted for gardens, or disposed of outside the village. Ash, sand, and dry plant matter sometimes lined animal bedding to control moisture and smell. People understood waste as a resource. It was managed with precision. Children helped by carrying small buckets, while older villagers oversaw compost piles to prevent overflow. Community design reinforced freshness on a larger scale. Streets, alleys, and public spaces were carefully planned. Houses weren't crammed randomly. Roads allowed airflow, drainage removed water and waste, and shared areas kept animals and refuse separate from living quarters. Mills, barns, and communal gardens were positioned to reduce odour near homes. People coordinated daily tasks, water collection, refuse management, and communal rush replacement to maintain hygiene at the village level. Knowledge sharing was crucial. Neighbours taught each other how to maintain fresh homes, manage animal pens, and rotate bedding. Rushes were swapped collectively, herbs distributed to prevent smell, and waste collection followed a predictable rhythm. Maintaining a home wasn't optional, it was a social expectation. Falling behind caused discomfort, not just for the household but for the whole village. Villagers observed one another, exchanged tips, and sometimes even competed in keeping the freshest, most organised home. Even the smallest routines mattered. Animals rotated between pens depending on weather, straw and sand were refreshed during damp periods, and public compost pits were monitored closely. Villagers anticipated odours before they arose, rather than reacting to them. Storage and organisation added another layer of control. Grain, fodder, tools, and household items were kept dry in lofts or cupboards, while waste and compost stayed separate. The layout of homes, pens, and storage functioned as an integrated system, protecting living spaces from smells. Children played a role too. They swept, shook rushes, and helped tend animals. Every household member contributed to maintaining comfort and hygiene. Smell wasn't left to chance. It was actively managed through careful planning, teamwork, and routine. Families coordinated tasks so that every chore, from tending animals to airing bedding, fit into a larger, ongoing system of odour control. The medieval world emerges as methodical and coordinated. Homes, animals, and communities formed a network that minimised odours. Dirt and minor smells existed, yes, but stench didn't dominate life. Villages functioned like living systems, balancing human comfort with animal and environmental realities. Stop thinking medieval people were doomed to live in constant stink. Dirt and odours existed, but personal habits were sophisticated, adaptive, and surprisingly effective. Bathing wasn't rare. Rivers, basins, tubs, and steam baths were used daily or weekly, timed with seasons. Cold water in summer refreshed, hot herbal steams in winter warmed the body and neutralised odours. Children learned the routine from a young age, carrying water for washing or gathering herbs to infuse into the bath. Hygiene was intentional, practical, and seasonally adapted. Soap existed too, though rudimentary. Hard, lye-based soap made from animal fat and ashes scrubbed skin and removed grime. Herbs, sage, rosemary, lavender, added fragrance and antimicrobial properties. Body odour was managed naturally long before deodorant existed. Villagers often kept small bundles of fragrant herbs near the hearth or bedding to rub onto skin or clothing as needed. Clothing hygiene played a major role. Garments were washed, aired, or brushed regularly. Straw-filled rushes, bedding, and clothes were layered with herbs to maintain freshness. Small sachets in clothing or shoes weren't decoration, they were clever solutions to odor. Hair and bedding were scented with herbs, adding subtle aroma while keeping life comfortable. Mothers and older siblings would routinely teach younger children how to air garments properly, and neighbors sometimes swapped scented herbs to keep their homes fresh. Seasonal routines amplified freshness. Winter called for dry cleaning, brushing garments, beating rushes, sprinkling floors with ash or sand. Summer brought open-air sleeping, airing bedding, and sun exposure to disinfect fabrics. Humans adapted their habits to control moisture and odor in every season. Oral hygiene contributed too. Herbal rinses, vinegar-based mouthwashes, or wine rinses kept breath fresh. Diets included aromatic herbs to reduce natural body odors. Children were taught the same routines: bedding refreshed, clothing aired, and personal hygiene maintained. Animals indoors were layered with straw or sand, and waste collected immediately, minimizing contact with living spaces. Clever tricks abounded. Herbs weren't just tucked in clothing, they were layered in rushes underfoot or bedding to release gentle fragrance. Smoke from the hearth masked minor odors, while vinegar or herbal infusions were applied to hair, shoes, or fabrics. Even shaking out bedding or airing clothes served as odor management. The integration was striking. Homes, communities, animals, and humans worked as a layered system to maintain freshness. Dirt and minor smells existed, but they never dominated life. Architecture, maintenance, animal management, community practices, and personal hygiene combined to create a surprisingly effective system. Streets were breathable, animals organized, homes ventilated, and humans adapted routines for comfort. Smell was not accidental. It was managed through knowledge, habit, and clever adaptation. Medieval life was far from the stinking chaos Hollywood depicts. It was layered, methodical, and intelligent. Homes, animals, and humans weren't isolated. They were part of a coordinated system designed to maintain freshness, comfort, and health. Every element, from ashes on the floor to herbs in hair, played a role in keeping life livable and surprisingly pleasant.